Hi there. Let's start this episode. Hello and welcome to PS Admin. I'm Mark, the PowerShell admin. In this episode, I'd like to introduce myself and my approach to PowerShell, and I'd also like to create a really simple function with you that you might find useful. In my years of Windows IT guy roles, PowerShell has been a godsend. When I was starting out, I was withering at the help desk, clicking away at the incoming work queue, when a coworker, the kind of young hotshot engineer you idolize as a young techie, he suggested that if I really wanted to advance my career, I should learn PowerShell. And learn I did. I started with the well-known book, Learn PowerShell in a Month of Lunches. It was a revelation. I had dabbled in programming before, from QBasic as a kid to, by this time, AutoHotkey for simple desktop macros to help speed up the process of opening and closing help tickets. But PowerShell was mysterious and unique. It was a shell language, apparently designed for simple tasks. Yet the more I dug in, the more I realized there was a lot going on under the hood. In fact, I wasn't able to finish the Month of Lunches book because by about the 20th chapter, I was enthralled with learning on my own, figuring out ways to do my current job better, and it was fun. Oh, it's Kloopy, the helpful PowerShell paperclip. Kloopy doesn't do much yet, but he's going to be my co-host. Say hi to Kloopy, folks, because he's not going anywhere. He's here for the long haul. Fast forward to today, and I still never have stopped getting a kick out of learning new things in PowerShell. It's just so fascinating. It seems the more you learn, the more you can springboard into C#. But the more you springboard into C#, the more you realize, hey, maybe I can still get by with PowerShell. What I desired for this channel is a place where IT admins can come and unwind, have fun, fear no error, and keep digging into the language to glean the deeper secrets waiting just below the surface. Too often, admins will learn just enough to get by, whether that means getting by in the interview or getting by in an application like Exchange that requires the shell for a lot of common settings. Then they'll happily go back to the GUI. So at least once per week, I'll be working a practical problem and trying to do it in a fun, honest way. It's more important to me to share the process, including discovery and debugging, than it is to provide a functioning piece of code at the end. I don't know, I might even end some episodes with nothing left but a pile of broken bits I can't string together. But that episode won't be today, because today we're going to solve a problem I've addressed at just about every position for the last 10 years. The simple function that I write over and over that meets a simple need that you might have seen before. Today we're going to create an alternative to read host that shines in a particular use case. So you've probably used and seen read host. So here we're reading the host, we're reading input from the user and saving it in a variable. It's nice if you're providing an interactive script for someone with little shell experience who might not understand how to supply parameters, but it's also a bit clunky, and for my typical purposes, it requires at least one too many keystrokes. Even if the answer is a simple one-word answer, you always have to hit enter when you're done. We'll be creating a commandlet function called getKeyPress. It will have one parameter, a list of acceptable keys that may be pressed. Once called, the function will not return until one of those keys is pressed. You can imagine how this would make getting through a series of decisions faster if the responses are simple and can be adequately represented by a single key press. So to accomplish this, we can call on the system.console class. Go ahead and look at that right now. Let's talk about discovering classes in the shell. The easiest way is to start with the open square bracket, type in the keyword you're looking for, and tab through to find it. Once you've done that, you can put 2 colons and then hit tab again to look at the methods and properties of the class. Let's go back to System Console. As you can see, there's a lot of properties. The methods begin with a parenthesis. You'll see the method we're looking for is readKey. To find out what readKey requires, we can simply enter it without the parentheses. As you can see, it can be called without any parameters, the empty parentheses, or it can be called with a Boolean, that is a true or false value that meets the intercept parameter. Let's try it. So right now it's waiting for a key press, and I hit Y. You can see that without supplying any parameters, it passes the key that I pressed through to the console, as well as saving it into the key press variable. I get this nice object here, which I don't recall the type. It's a console key info object. It includes everything that I would need to identify what key is pressed. So it looks like what we probably want is to use this function or this method with the intercept function set to true, or the intercept parameter. I'm sorry, pardon my mistakes there. The intercept parameter set to true. So if we press key press and then set it to true, you'll see that now I pressed a key and it is saved in the key press object, but it didn't pass it through to the console. This is tidier and better suited to the function that we'll be creating. Let's go ahead and put a simple function syntax into the console. That way we can press up and down to tab through it, or cycle through it, and add to it as we go. Okay. Right now it's empty, so it doesn't do anything. I mentioned earlier that I was going to add the accept keys parameter. Let's go ahead and type constrain that to a string array. By type constraining it, the function will only accept a value for it that can be cast into one or more strings. If there's something in there that can't be cast into a string, it will error out. This is desirable because oftentimes many of the errors and the debugging that I have wasted so many hours on is because internally in a script or function, there's a poorly inferred type that is not satisfying the input of some other function or some other part of the script, some comparison, for instance. So the other thing that we're going to have to do here is, in order for it to accept only the keys that we have specified, we're going to put the readKey method inside a do until loop. So we'll put that here. Oops, that was a little too vague. All right, so we're going to readKey, intercept that key. And so it's going to do what's inside the do loop until this until clause is satisfied. Until the accept keys contains, oops, I didn't save that as a variable. There we go. Until accept keys contains key press. And there we have it. So get key press, accept keys. Let's say we want just Y or N. What did we do wrong? I find an overload for I put the wrong value in there. There we go. Or the wrong method. There is a read value, but it doesn't accept that particular method. That doesn't accept a Boolean parameter. Okay, so now let's try that again. So no matter what keys I press, it's not going to do anything until I press one of these specified keys. But of course, I don't know which one was pressed. So now the only thing I have left to do is write the output. And this will write it back to the pipeline to be saved into a variable or used in the next pipeline element if it accepts pipeline input. So you can see there that I have it so that it accepts only the keys that are specified in the get key press command. If you do use this function, which I will provide as a GitHub gist linked down in the description, you might consider using enter as a default value. For keys like enter, spacebar, and escape, just type out enter, spacebar, or escape. If you want to ask the user yes or no, and the default is yes, you might simply put something like this. So in this case, you would put logic after the commandlet that would take the same action if either Y or enter was pressed. That makes it simpler for people who just want to click through and enter the default values. Or if you're putting in a check to see if they're sure they want to do something, often you would have enter be the default value. And really it's their fault at that point if they didn't read your prompt. So now that we have this function finished, let's go ahead and put it into the ISE really quickly to clean it up a little bit, and then after that we'll put it in our profile so that we never have to develop this function again on this computer. There. Now we can see Kloopy still. So one of the things I'd like to do is I think I'd like to make the accept keys parameter mandatory. Go. And while I'm in here, I should add some indentation so this is easier to read. That looks good to me. We'll Control A, Control C. Back in the console window, let's Notepad $profile. Control V, Control S, and just like that, we've added that commandlet into our profile, so we should never have to type it again. Thank you. I really appreciate you clicking play and going through this quick intro and tutorial with me. And I'd ask that you'd leave a comment if you have any requests or feedback. Is there something you've never understood about PowerShell, or is there something you think it does very poorly that you'd like to see someone improve on? Leave those juicy comments down below and come back next time as we learn by playing in the shell. I'm Mark, the PowerShell admin, and that's all for now. Say goodbye, Kloopy.